First speaker is Luis Portoles from IDME, from partner institution in this project, IDME from Spain. And Luis will present the presentation with the topic Introduction to Additive Manufacturing Technologies and their application to the medical device. So please, Luis, please share the screen because all panelists can share a screen.
Okay, good morning to everyone. I think that you can hear me well.
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. And do you see my screen as well? Do you see the PowerPoint? Okay, so I'm Luis Portoles, so I'm the responsible of the technology and processes area here in IDME. IDME is a research center located in Valencia. Let me introduce, first of all, what is IDME. IDME is, as I mentioned, a research technological center located in Valencia, in Spain. It's the joint of two previous research centers, IDME and IDMA. But we are working in this field around since 30 years ago, more or less. So our main goal is to, I would like to say that we are considering as a technological partner of the companies in order to improve their competitiveness in different fields by means of different kind of activities, many research and development projects, consultancy with a specific advancing services, laboratory tests, technical training, and also we have different kind of technology observatory and market analysis trends. This is the main fields that we are working with. Water and liquid waste treatment, additive manufacturing, product development, smart manufacturing, advanced applications of materials, modified surfaces, toxicity of materials, intelligent packaging, and biomaterials. But today we will talk about additive manufacturing. That is the main focus of INEXADAM. As I'm the in some cases it's also known as 3D printing, but
I'm not sure, but Luis, we cannot hear you. You are muted.
okay, can you hear me now?
Now, yes, yes.
Okay, sorry, perhaps I don't know if I have some problems with the connection as well. Sorry for that. I mentioned that there is the other.
Can you share us a screen because I cannot.
Okay,
see it.
sorry. Now? Okay, so we have the subtractive, that is another manufacturing process where we are removing the material in order to achieve the geometry, and additive, that we are obtaining the part, adding material layer by layer, and that's allow us to have some advantage for using this kind of technologies. So it's possible to process different materials, polymer and metal, and nowadays it's possible to see in the state of the in the state of the art different kind of technologies for processing different kind of materials. Now, IDME is also considered here in Spain as a additive manufacturing excellence center, especially in metal. And I think that we have the opportunity to share with you today what is our expertise in this area. How the additive manufacturing works. So the first step is to have a 3D file that usually comes from CAD software, perhaps. This is a parametric 3D model that must be converted in a mesh that is known as STL file. And after that, there is software that converts this geometry, this 3D volume, into layers that the system is able to reproduce, providing some energy source and converting this virtual geometry into melted material or solid material, layer by layer. Here in this picture, it's possible to see that we obtain, in some cases, the final geometry, in others, a pre-shape with some specific additional geometry, also known in this case as support, that is required for this technology, is not related with the final geometry of the part, but is required for processing the part. So it is required to remove this geometry, the supports, and also perhaps to perform different post processes like machining or heat treatment in order to obtain the final technical requirements of the final part. So this is the workflow of a typical additive manufacturing processes, from the virtual geometry to the physical and final model. What is the applications of additive manufacturing?
Luis, can you hear me? Oh, my apology. We have obviously today problems with connections. We will wait Luis to come back, I hope very soon. Oh, he's here.
Sorry.
Okay, we can hear you now. We can see you now, but not for long. Please unmute yourself. Okay.
Damir,
Yeah.
I think we have some problems. Perhaps it's possible to go ahead with Jose, and after that, I try to follow,
okay.
Because otherwise
Okay.
it could be.
Okay.
Sorry for these problems. We will try to solve it in a certain time.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, my apology because we have some technical difficulties, but it is due to probably some bad connections. And my apology again for not introduced one new speaker, which is added 1 day ago to our agenda. It's Jose Francisco Gonzalez Thomas from University of Cardinal Herrera. I hope that I pronounced okay. And this is a representative from the dental sector. So Jose will show us his experience in this dental area of application of additive manufacturing. Thank you very much for participate in our workshop. And Jose, please share your screen so you can show us your experience in this area.
Thank you so much, Tamer, for introducing myself, and good morning to everyone. And also thank you to IDME for the kind invitation. I'm gonna show you what's my experience with. Can you see my screen? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm gonna see. Sorry. Okay, so well, I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience. I think that most of people attending and attendees come from the world of engineering. So probably the approach of a clinician who currently use this kind of technology in the dental treatments could give some little value of what you are doing in the lab or when you are investigating some new procedures in additive technology. So, well, this is my. I want to introduce a little bit about my profile. I'm currently, as you see in the corner, in the left corner, I'm currently collaborating with an enterprise of implants, which is really involved in digital dentistry, which is Avinent. And I'm the responsible professor of prosthesis, fixed prosthesis. I'm obviously talking about dental fixed prosthesis in CEU Cardenal Herrera, which is a university located in Valencia. And what you see is my little office. I'm working in a little office close to the university, in which I try to apply digital concepts, but also 3D printing. So the advantage that the digital technologies that I have applied in my dental routine, in my clinical routine, together in this case with 3D printing, are those that I'm going to show you very little because I have a really short span of time. So digital technologies, mainly with regards to the data acquisition that we are going to see later, provide comfort to either me and the patient, a quick communication with my technician, which is going to fabricate future restorations, reduce my time spans in my prosthetic procedures, even the number of appointments that are required, reduce to the minimum the adjustments that I have to do in my final restorations, prosthetic restorations, and allows me to visualize and preview which are the final results that I'm gonna reach with my final restorations before starting the treatment, which is really important, and it was not done in the past in dentistry, in analog dentistry, what we used to do in our dental routine in most of dental offices. Also, as I'm going to show you, it allows me to train myself in surgical procedures by simulating sometimes the surgery before doing the surgery, by creating bone models, as I'm going to show you quickly. Created printing guides that allow me also precise implant placement, traditionally implant placement, I'm talking obviously about implants which are restoring missing teeth, was done freehand. So there was kind of improvisation at the time of the implant placement, and fabrication of some other devices and appliances, like, for example, provisional crowns, individualized trays, occlusal wards. There's huge, a wide range of procedures to be done with 3D printing today. So I'm gonna show you quickly some pictures so that you can understand a little bit of what we are doing with the 3D printing in our office. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to just to reinforce the concept of CADCAM procedure, which is something that has been established really well in the world of dentistry. We have first the data acquisition, in which obviously we're gonna get the data we need for the processing, for creating the new restorations in this case. The data processing and design, which is something that can be done also or mainly by the dental technician, but also by the dentist, and which is in this case 3D printing, the computer assisted manufacturing. Okay, this is my data acquisition. You can hear how my intraoral scanner is getting all the data that I need from my patient without this uncomfortable paste that you already know if you have visited the dentist, and how quick is the technology acquiring the data and creating these 3D files that we will need in the future for the processing, right? Well, this is the final the final file we're gonna get, in this case with 3Shape, which is the intraoral scanner. We in dentistry we use optical intraoral scanners, which have been validated in vitro studies. It's true that we have now some scars of clinical studies, but for sure in a short time we will have clinical studies validating these processes, although in vitro, so good results. And this is these are the softwares that I use for designing my future restorations of the elements I need for doing my clinical that is my clinical practice, which are mostly Mesh Mixer. Probably most of you know Mesh Mixer because it's a free tool that it's able to work with a lot of files. And one which is the Blender for Dental, which is a 3D software for processing and creating, designing restorations or whatever you need, even splints and a lot of another appliances. And as Luis mentioned before, what we need for transforming the STLs into layers that will be transmitted to the 3D printed and will become at the end the future physical model. Okay, this is my very little space in my office, which is dedicated for 3D printing, and it was the one in the left is the one with which I started my practice. It's a 3D printer, a desktop 3D printer, but now I have recently purchased a new printer, which is obviously more expensive, but it's specific for dental purposes. This is one of the evolutions of 3D printing. We have now in the market 3D printers which are particularly designed for dentists and for dental technicians. Well, I'm gonna show you some cases quickly so that you can understand what we are doing. This is my 3D Blender for Dental in a case of a patient in which I can superpose some other files, like for example pictures, in order to plan which is my final result before starting as we have seen before. It allows me to print a prototype of my final restoration with the 3D printer, which I'm going to use for several things, like for example, let's see. like for example, to create this is what is called Mockup. Is kind of simulation of the final result inside the mouth of my patient, which allow me or will guide me about the thicknesses that I need to reduce in my natural teeth to have the minimum thickness required for my material to do the restoration. And you can see at the left, which is the final result, which really looks like to the initial planning that you have seen in the slide before. So by doing this, and I'm eliminating the improvisation that we have when we are starting a treatment. Okay, I know exactly where I want to go. This is the simulation of an implant surgery. You can see that software in which I can plan my implants before placing them. I have the possibility of creating a bone model, as you can see in the left, in which I can train my splints that are going to guide my implants and see how the implants are three-dimensionally placed and allows me also to detect anatomical landmarks or whatever I need to know before attending to the surgery and starting with my surgery. So I'm reducing the possibility of problems during my surgery. I'm also using this 3D printing technology. You can see again a new a bone model that I have printed from the CBCT of my patient. That is a DICOM file that I can transform in an STL, and I can fabricate this device that you can see, which is almost translucent. This is a splint for implant placement. And you can see at the bottom in the left side how I have trained my implant placement before the surgery. We can see even anatomical structures like the nasopalatal nerve that is the hole that the second hole you can see. Is difficult now to explain, and you can see how directly in the mouth of the patient I can use my burrs to create the socket in which that's going to hold my implant really precisely. Okay, this is the final. Sorry because well, some of the pictures have some blood, and probably you are not really used to see blood in this. But this just to show you how precise is the placement compared with my previous planification. On the right side, you have the planification I did in my CBCT. On the left side, you have the final placement of my implant, and how it looks like is almost exactly the same. Okay, this is one of the most important advantages of using 3D printing in dentistry, and particularly in implantology. Well, and some other things that I can do is the 3D printing of provisional crowns. This is a task that it used to be done by the dental technician, but with the 3D printing and some little knowledges about how to manage 3D files and how to print them, the dentist by itself is able to fabricate his own printed provisional crowns. Okay, so we can even reduce the dependence on some other professionals, which is not obviously the target, but we can it can help us also in some other things. And this is what I mentioned before. In the past, when we fabricate the final restorations, what we had is what we had to do is to do several tests in which the final restoration was adjusted directly. I mean, the final restoration that I was going to place inside the mouth of my patient had to be adjusted directly, and it was a problem because we were adjusting the final material, and we can create even some problems. So now with additive manufacturing, we have the possibility of prototyping the design made by our dental technician, we can print it in material, usually in PMMA, polymethyl methacrylate, and we can do the direct test in our patient's mouth. Is the wet thing you see on the left side, and I can do the minor adjustments I need with regards to the contacts, with everything, and I can rescan it and send to my lab, so that my lab do the adjustments in the virtual 3D model, and can fabricate my final restoration that is almost perfect the day I'm going to place inside the mouth of the patient. So this is something that it was impossible with the analog dentistry to prototype and copy exactly the adjustments that we do inside the mouth. And I think we're going to finish with this slide. This is one of the other applications in the dentistry. In my case, I treat my patients with occlusal warts, and I have digital. Well, I have in my processing of data, I have the possibility of imitating the movements of my patient, so that my printed occlusal wart could be perfectly adjusted in terms of contacts, and it's going to do the job perfectly before placing in the direct patient, and with minor adjustments, which is something that in the past was impossible to do. And we needed a lot of adjustments in the mouth of the patient the day of the delivery of the occlusal wart. And sorry, just this is for sure. This is the last one. This is from some products, or these are some products which are promising. Although it was thought that the additive technology was only for provisional purposes, it's true that recently manufacturers have launched into the market some products that are thought to be definitive restorations, and created with 3D printing, with additive technology. We have now definitive restorations in dentistry, at least, are fabricated mostly with milling, with subtractive techniques, okay, with milling procedures. So hopefully in a short time I will test these crowns, and in the future, if you invite me again, which will be a pleasure, I will tell you how it works. Thank you so much again for the invitation and for the opportunity of showing what we are doing in the dental office.
Thank you, Jose, a lot for a very interesting presentation. The attendees can put a question through the chat. So far, we have a question from colleague Hershak, but this is general question, not for you, Jose, maybe for other speakers. So maybe after the end of the day, we should put this question about producing anthropomorphic phantoms for tissue equivalent structure for ionizing radiation dosimetry, because our colleague is a physician in the hospital, and he's work this is one of his area of expertise, dosimetry, and he works in most cases with phantoms, but okay, he can explain maybe even more at the end of our workshop, because this is really general question. But there is one question from Stefan Schuschnigg from Montana University in Leoben. He's asked, his question is, what printer did you use and how big are they? How fast they can produce? So what is the rate of the production? It's a question for you, Jose.
Sorry. Well, initially I started with Anycubic, which is a really cheap printer, but now I'm working with Accureta DentiQ, and I'm gonna type it in the chat so that you can see. This is the one I started to work with. So although there are printers which are really speed, like for example Accureta Sol, which is the new model for Accureta, and it prints like I think 4.5 centimeters an hour or so. The one I'm using right now is like 1.5, is like 1/3. So for me, printing, for example, a mouthword that the one you see in the last slide, or it takes like 1 hour and a half or so, or printing a model is approximately 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. Note that usually when doing 3D printing, you have to do several things like inclining a little bit the model in 15 degrees or so, because those of you who are used to the 3D printing in a level that I'm doing, you know that there are some problems that could arise if you print it flat. So if you put in oblique, it takes more time, obviously, because it requires more layers. But it's approximately the grounds that you have seen at the end. For example, it will take like 30 minutes or even less. So ranging, I think it's ranging from 30 minutes to 2 hours, most of cases.
Okay, thank you. And we have another question, and maybe we can finish with this question. So we will have also discussion at the end of the workshop, and maybe to discuss a little bit more. But this question is from the area. What kind of a materials is used to manufacture those dental implants? And is there any specific parameters required before you will select any of these materials?
I'm sorry, I don't. Well, obviously for 3D printing, sorry, the question is for me.
Yeah.
Am I right? Okay. Well, for 3D printing, we are using FDA Class 2 materials. FDA is Food and Drug Administration. In Europe, I think is ISO 10,990 or so. So are biocompatible materials, of course. For dental implants, well, we don't have the possibility with 3D printing. Dental implants is something that belongs to industry. So the most we can do is to print crowns that will be connected to one piece that is prefabricated, which is the T-base. And the material that you have seen at the end, which is Barceo Smile, it's supposed to allow to create implant crowns that will be cemented to these prefabricated pieces that connect with the implants. But implants itself is something that obviously have to be done. Sorry, because for probably I'm misunderstanding the concept. Probably for you, implants is a different thing than it is for me. For me, implants are endo-osseous devices made mostly of titanium. We don't have the possibility with these small 3D printers to print or do kind of 3D printing, which is the, well, in dental industry we said that is sinterizing. We cannot do that in our dental offices.
Okay, thank you, Jose. Thank you very much once again for your presentation and for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I can invite Luis again to finish to proceed with his presentation, and I hope that now everything will be okay. Thank you, Luis.
Thanks to you, and apologies to all the audiences because we have some connection problems, but it seems that the problem is solved. Do you see my screen? Yes. Okay. So following with the discussion, the previous discussion, so this is the applications mainly of additive manufacturing. Jose explained what is the application in the dentistry market, but in general, we can use this kind of techniques for processing different kind of implants. In that case, we are talking about implants inside of the body as well. So we are able to produce standard custom implants, even the instrumental devices for surgery, and also the physical models or phantoms that you are referring as well as phantoms for planning surgery. But this is the way to obtain, in the case of the implants, the 3D model of the patient. So the first step is to obtain the ADDICOM image from a CT scan. With this, we are able, with a specific software, to obtain a 3D virtual model of the patient for surgery plan. Thanks to the cooperation to the different persons with different skills, like the surgeon and the engineer and the specialist in the process. With these tools, with these phantoms, it's possible to plan perfectly what is the surgery to be done with this patient, with this specific patient. One advantage to use additive manufacturing, for instance, in the case of standard implants, or even in the case of the custom, is that these technologies are able to reproduce the structure of a bone. And also this is an advantage for the osteointegration, for growing the growth around this trabecular structure. So this technology allows us to perform like this trabecular structure that replicates the structure of a bone. And also it's possible by means of CAD software, for instance, to specify exactly port geometry, port size, and the density, the roundness, and so on. So it's possible to have into the market different solutions for different companies using different specifications for these trabecular structures. That is an advantage. So that means that it is not required specifically a post-process for providing like a coating for improving this osteointegration. With the same material, with the same technology, is possible to obtain this growth integration in the same part. I think it's a good advantage. In the case of the custom implants, obviously, in some specific applications, makes sense to fit the implant to the specific problem of the patient, specifically in some cancer or even other kind of problems where it's a lack of a bone. So, and there is not allowed to use standard implants. This is the benefit. So it's possible to use to have these benefits, this advantage. So we can produce the parts in a short series. That means also that it's possible to reduce the stock in some cases. We have the possibility to have some freedom in the design. So thanks to that, we can reduce the weight of the parts. It's important. With these technologies also, we produce net-to-set geometries. It's important to highlight that in some cases it is required, as I mentioned before, some post-processes for obtaining the final part. But I mean, we can consider that it's possible to have a shorter supply chain. That's important as well in order to reduce the delivery time and also the problems along the supply chain. And at the end, reduce the investment in production tools. This is the advantage. But in front of this advantage, there is some challenge because I mean, that is require depth knowledge about these technologies in order to design properly for these technologies, for these manufacturing technologies. Also, at this moment, there is a development of software that could help, for instance, to include these trabecular structures, but I think that still there is a lot of things to do in this topic. In some cases, it's important to increase the TRL of the technology for some specific applications, and also it's quite important to establish a team, as I mentioned, with different persons with different expertise in order to define perfectly what is the supply chain of these parts. And that's require a challenge at the end. As Jose mentioned before as well, there is a restrictive market. The health market is, there is a legal framework that is important to consider here. In the case of Europe, when we talk about the implants, we are talking about certification CE. In the case of Europe, in the case of USA, the FDA clear. This is also a standard to be compliant with the medical devices. This is ISO 1340185. And also, of course, you need a product supplier license. And recently, there is another regulation here in Europe that must be considered for producing implants by additive manufacturing as well. So this is the technologies that we have here in-house based on polymer and metals. For instance, in the case of metal, we have a powder bed fusion with based on laser and electron beam as well. In the case of polymers, so we have here stereolithography, DLP, CFF, FDM, SLS, multi-jet fusion as well. But mainly our activity in additive manufacturing is related, as I mentioned, providing technical consultancy to the companies that are planning to implement these technologies in their business. To provide support to design properly for taking advantage of design manufacturing in different markets. Also, it's important to develop new materials. You know that usually the technology providers offers to the companies the materials that they are producing, but it's possible to use another kind of material. So it's question to work in the development of the process parameters for processing this material. So on that way, we are working, increasing the range of the material suitable to be processed with these technologies. A must as well is to qualify the material, especially for these markets, in order to ensure that you have the reproducibility in terms of mechanical properties, in terms of chemistry and so on. That's part of the qualification of the process. And also, we are involved in the development of technology, specifically for metal parts as well. And we provide training to disseminate knowledge transfer to the company. This is our main activity around additive manufacturing. For instance, in the case of stereolithography, we are using for anatomical models for surgical planning, surgical guides, non-implantable, limited contact medical applications. In some cases, these resins are also biocompatible, as Jose mentioned before. For being in contact with a person with a limited time, less than 24 hours. In some applications, that's enough, it depends. In the case of DLP, it's another technology that, so I think there is some samples that are also presented in the case of Jose, but also we can use it for hearing aids, medical devices and models as well. In the case of SLS, so it's possible to use it for orthopedical applications, anatomical models for surgical implants, surgical guides, and functional prototypes. In the pictures, it's possible to see different samples that we were involved in different kind of projects and also consultancy to companies. In the case of this technology, the provider is HP. It's a very new technology, and we are able to work with polyamide. In that case, it's thermoplastic. And we use it, for instance, for producing different kind of solutions, specifically for this pandemic crisis since the last year, for producing masks and different kind of devices that we were involved with, for instance. The vacuum casting, so we are using for producing silicone molds, for instance, for cranioplasty, for bone cement implants, surgical guides, different kind of medical devices and applications. So it's possible to produce even a series of 20, 40, 50, even 50 parts with a single mold. So in some cases could be interesting, like a sword series as well. In the case of the metal parts, we are using, as I mentioned, powder bed fusion technologies. In this case, is laser, the energy source for melting the material. So we are using stainless steel for medical applications, cobalt chromium, titanium for grade 23, the LE, cobalt chromium as well. For hip implants. So it's possible to use it for custom standard implants, surgical guides, dental implants, and so on. This is some examples of acetabular caps, also maxillofacial implants, maxillofacial yes, implants. And here is possible to see some tools for surgery applications as well. In the case of electron beam melting, so we are able to use also titanium for LE, cobalt chromium F25, and specifically another metal alloy with niobium that is biocompatible with good mechanical properties. And it's possible to use it for custom and standard implants. Now, in fact, we have some relations, so we have some patents on this, and also we have established some agreement with some companies for licensing the production of some custom implants using this kind of technologies and metals and laser and electron beam as well for producing custom implants for maxillofacial applications as well. And now we are working with other company here for producing standard implants as well. Here is possible to see in this picture that considering these technologies like in production, the question is to try not only to think about the technical feasibility, if not economical feasibility. When we are talking about standard implants, it's important to reduce the cost of the part. On that case, it's possible with these technologies even to use the nesting process for producing different kind of sizes or even different kind of items per build production in order to reduce the price per part. I think it's a good remark as well. An important or a must is to have a quality control. So on that case, here in our facilities, we have the possibility to have chemistry and mechanical labs for checking. So an advantage of the additive manufacturing is that it's possible to reuse the material, but this material has losing properties in every production. So it's question to control that you have the titanium for LE, for instance, in the same way in the different productions along the time. So that require is restrictive quality control to ensure that. So for doing that, we produce different kind of specimens in every big job in order to characterize after that if the material is in good condition, so it is required to be refreshed. This is our activity around. So we are involved in 79 additive manufacturing research projects since 2000 in different fields: material qualification, redesign, technology training, and industrialization. This is some samples of some of these projects. For instance, this is the first project that we were involved, Fabio. In that case, we developed and we researched in the development and implementation of new biomaterials in the use of additive manufacturing technology for producing orthoses and osseous substitutes. Here is possible to see an example, in that case, a hip. We perform a fatigue test. In that case, this implant is made with titanium 4, and the test reveals that it's possible to resist even 5 million cycles without any kind of problem. That means that it's a good alternative in comparison with the forge and machining for producing this kind of implant. This is also an orthosis application. On that case, also is a transtibial socket. On that case, here is also an orthosis application. We have different kind of materials, so depending on the application, in the market nowadays, in fact, there is a wide range of technologies and materials. So it's impossible to have all of them in-house. So depending on the application, it is more indeed one or the other. The challenge is to have the knowledge to select what is the more indeed for any kind of application. That I think that is our expertise and also the support that we provide to the companies that we are working with. In this project, for instance, we study what is the best trabecular structure for allowing the growth of the bone. So we perform different tests with in rabbits, in vivo test with a partner, and with any adverse effect. And we can say that even the behavior is better than the titanium foam, for instance. So with this knowledge, we can apply to different product development, like acetabular caps or other kind of implants. This is other project that we were involved for developing osteosynthesis plates and also some acetabular caps made with titanium 6 aluminum 7 niobium, and also for producing crowns, bridges for dental purposes at the end. In this project, we work with different companies in order to establish what is the best supply chain for providing implants. So we have involved hospitals, we have involved companies that develop the software for digital imaging, for surgery planning, at the end, companies that develop implants, dental implants, trauma implants, and so on. And we develop different business cases, transtibial trays, hip, knees, implants, and so on. Here is possible to see as well some video that talk about the supply chain. In this project, so we work with in which way it could be implementing custom implants in humans and also in pets. We find that in the case of the veterinarian, is also is a niche in this market for implementing additive manufacturing as well. And in some cases, you know that some pets are in good conditions in comparison with humans, I mean. So also this is an example of some research of the use of additive manufacturing in orthosis, with some examples that we developed in some projects like this corset, and here also some applications for soles as well. Again, different materials, different technologies, depending on the application. So it is required flexibility, vibration absorption, and so on. So it's quite difficult to have all these possibilities. So it's necessary to check it. We will cooperate as well in this European project with Materialize and other kind of big players, Smith & Nephew, to Kirby. So then there are companies related with healthcare in general, implants. And we develop here a software with a supply chain in order to ensure that you have all the documentation, all the traceability in order to ensure that you have all the process under control. It's quite important as well in this regulated market for sure. And finally, this is a project that we were involved as well for preparing training material for disseminating this knowledge transfer to the different players like surgeons or companies that were interested to achieve more information about the use of additive manufacturing in this market. So it's possible to follow as well this training course by internet. So in different kind of language, English, Spanish, Polish, and Hungarian at this moment. And I think it's the best way to, yes, to introduce these technologies and also to come into this amazing world that is the use of additive manufacturing in the health market, because there is a huge horizon to explore with huge range of applications that requires, again, that knowledge. And we can help you to support in this research, in this roadmap, if you want. So that's all from my side. Sorry again and apologies for my problems with the connection. And I think if you have any question, I'm open to discuss it with you.
Thank you, Luis, for very, very interesting presentation. And I should say that maybe everyone is clear why you are our partners in this project, because you have really a huge expertise and huge knowledge in this area. So thank you again for presentation of
it's a pleasure.
Project. And if there is maybe one or two questions, please ask now, or we can discuss maybe more during the last 15 to 30 minutes of our workshop today at the end. If there is no questions, I cannot see it, then